Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. So you have had one, maybe two long relationships in your life, including the last one that began in marriage. Oh, maybe you were in your 20s and it ended later in life in your 50s or 60s. And there you are, thrusted into this thing called dating, which you never really did before to begin with. I mean, you dated maybe back in the day, but it was with the intention of finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend with whom you hope to eventually marry. So, fast forward, here you are, older, wiser, having life experiences, yet you never really dated without getting attached and into a relationship. I mean, dating for the sole purposes of having fun, getting to know yourself and to see what it is like to be by yourself and who you are and figure all those things out. And not only what you like, but what you don't like this time around. Really, what you are needing to do is date yourself. I know as a relationship person, you'd like to skip it all and get right to the boyfriend or girlfriend, right? But you have to think of yourself as being in kindergarten almost, learning how to play on the playground. And I'm sorry, you can't just skip to the PhD program, as I know you intellectual and high achievers would like to do. And throw it on top of the fact that you might even be a little bit of an introvert who just hates the thought of dating. Dating as a beginner in the second act can be nerve-wracking. It can be, just overwhelming. But you deserve a healthy, loving relationship and having fun experiences this time around. And honestly, at every age, putting yourself back out there isn't easy. You have to give yourself time at the end of the relationship. You have to be realistic in your expectations and what you're set out to do. You got to know your goals. You have to learn about the dating scene. And you have to not put so much pressure on yourself or on first dates for that matter. But most of all, you have to learn the dating skills and practice that so that you can build your confidence. And that's what creates opportunities. But most of all, have fun. So many of you hate dating. That's why my whole series of workshops is called Stop Hating Dating, because all of you hate dating. So I want to make dating fun again, or even for the first time. And that's why I was excited to do this episode with a lovely woman who I have on the line. She has been divorced and single for almost 10 years and has done a lot of internal work on herself, but finding herself now wanting to get back out there, and she just doesn't know how. She doesn't have a lot of dating experience and is definitely a relationship gal with some introvert tendencies. So the thought of flirting and conversation and just courting men all seems overwhelming and daunting. So I hope I can help break it down into some simple ways to get out there and start building her confidence to find love and fun again. Welcome, Lisa. Are you there?
I am. Thank you, Kimmy.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. And I was really excited to do this with you because we just had one conversation a while back, and I'm like, oh my God, you're coming on the podcast because I want to give you some hope and some tips so that you can feel more confident getting back out there. Well, obviously said a little bit about you, but I'd love for you to tell everybody like who you are, how old you are, and just what your dating journey has been so far.
So yeah, gosh, that's a lot. So I don't tell people my age generally, but I'm in my early 60s, but I look much younger, of course.
Okay. It's okay. No one can see you.
Um, and um, and I've been divorced, as you said, for about 10 years. And I've tried the online dating thing, and I tried different things. I tried, getting the professional photos done and doing the special blurbs and, all the strategies of getting off the phone, getting off the texting into a phone call and then ultimately to a date. And, I had dates and it was fine, but never found anything um, that was long term. And the whole time, I felt kind of uncomfortable because I felt like I was trying to follow this recipe, regardless of whether it was a good fit for me or not. So there was a little bit of, a question for me of like the authenticity of it all that was a little uncomfortable. So I would hardly say that it was a comfortable thing. And like you said during your introduction, if we could just skip the whole dating part and go right to the relationship, I would think I would do fine.
You're like, sign me up.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So, but it's that whole piece that I really have difficulty navigating.
Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. What is uncomfortable about dating for you specifically?
Well, I mean, if you say what is comfortable about dating,
No,
nothing.
no, uncomfortable,
Everything.
uncomfortable. Oh,
I
but
know.
you're,
I'm telling you everything.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
it's the online dating. I mean, I took a new job where there's a lot of other people in sort of my age group that I thought, okay, well, this at least I'll get out more and maybe meet some people there. So I'm trying to find ways to meet people organically. So far, that really isn't materialized. And the online dating thing, I'm not on any sites right now just because I feel like I don't know where to turn.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, and this was more like on our call last time, that you're more of an introvert. Like, how does that kind of play out with all of this stuff with dating?
Um, I'm good on one-on-one conversations, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was, there's been many times in business where I needed to pretend to be an introvert, and I can. I do a great imitation. Oh, sorry, of an extrovert. I do a great imitation. It is draining. So I can function that way, but I guess the problem I had is I got into a bad habit in COVID of, being perfectly happy at home, and I've got my friend group and my activities, and I don't really need, it's not natural for me to seek out other, group events or opportunities to interact on a bigger scale.
Yeah, you said some key pieces that I wanted to like just unravel a little bit because there's this theme where you're saying like I want to be authentic. There's this discomfort around almost like things not feeling natural, so to
Hmm.
speak. And I so get that. I wondered what things you're referring to, like what aspects of the dating game, so to speak, feels unnatural.
Well, if so, you know, I guess for me, I don't have clarity on how it is that I am supposed to interact with people. So it's supposed to be, okay, you talked about having fun, and I'm all about fun. I love having fun,
Hmm.
but it's these sort of, coy, it feels like, I guess it's all the flirting and all that part that, I mean, I can
Um,
flirt, but it's like initiating it. It's not how I lead, I guess. My lead is a very, what you see is what you get kind of thing. So it doesn't come natural to me to do something other than that. And my perception is that you absolutely don't want to do that. That's like the wrong thing to do. So,
uh-huh. Yeah. No, you're so awesome. This is why, like, I think you have such a great sense of humor and the fun. Like, people define fun in different ways, and obviously, like, the definition of fun does not equal dating for you. Like, I hear you loud and clear. And what you said is really important. Is I think this is more the pain point is this kind of flirting thing. Like, tell me more about that because you're like, well, that's not me. Like, what is flirting to you and why isn't this you?
well, to me, flirting is sort of leading people on in a somewhat sexual way. And I'm good with sex. I just don't, I mean, I guess it's the line between being, you don't want to be a prick tease, for example, to use a phrase that, I don't know if that's old school, but,
Uh,
to lead people on to think, because there's also a lot of people that just want hookups,
hmm.
hookups and, friends with benefits and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really, there are times that I thought about that, but that's really not what I want. I'd like to have a relationship. So if you really play that, the really sexy, coy, you
Hmm.
know, part? Are you leading people to think that that's that's what you're all about? And it's not what I'm all about. But, I guess that's the hook. I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm talking to you, because I
Right. That's
don't
right.
know.
No, and this is a great conversation because I have this conversation a lot with especially women, when they're trying to figure out what this whole thing is, like cracking the code. And especially since you said you tend to be more like direct and what you see is what you get, matter of fact. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you see femininity then, in relation to all this?
Well, see, this goes back to like a whole, what may be a can of worms of the whole concept. I was having this discussion actually with my college roommate recently, because she
Hmm.
was saying neither of her daughters, who are in their early 20s, had had any serious relationships. And then we got into this discussion about what are men looking for. And, it's sort of the perception is, they want somebody they can take care of, someone weak and who can't take care of themselves. They really need a man. And, I can take care of myself, but I'd rather not go through this by myself, but I'm not helpless. And so the perception is that, and actually she and I got into this discussion about whether, men today are having a really hard time, as a lot of women are become, now more women are in college and they're more professional. And so is that somehow emasculating men?
Mm.
And so, I don't know the answer, but my perception is that you need to play the, and I don't, like, not completely helpless, but like oh, I'm just, this cute little frail thing over here, and I need some big, strong man to take care of me, kind of thing.
Oh, you did that very well, Lisa, actually. I'm going to put on a red dress
Yeah,
and I want you to
lips,
twirl
lots of
your
makeup,
hair and do
hair and
this.
nails.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so there seems to be this association and almost like distaste for what you're like deeming as being feminine and flirty. Like it's like dumbing down or being weak
Yes.
or, pretending to be helpless kind of thing.
Right.
And so, with that, I'm wondering because of that association with it, have you almost gone the other way where there's this kind of attitude in the way that you talk or the way that you walk is like, I don't need no man. And you lead with more your masculine, direct kind of energy because you don't want a man to think that of you.
Well, it's not that I don't want them to think that. I'm not that. And to pretend that I'm that, it doesn't feel authentic to me. So I am, and I've learned a lot of really, as far as dating goes, bad habits in business, which is,
Mm.
to take the lead, to be strong, to initiate conversation. And so like when I'll ask a guy a lot of questions, and I've had some people say, "Oh no, you're not supposed to ask the questions. You let them ask the questions." I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. It's kind of, it seems very one-sided, but I can do that. And so it's, yeah.
I know, I see where you're getting stuck. And I think that there's still this kind of notion around what femininity and flirting means to you. Like where's some of this coming from? Like how did you grow up with like kind of role models around this?
Well, I mean, do you get role models for flirting? I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Or just
okay,
even like talking,
well,
like I didn't know how your mom was, or like, like did you have to grow up like pretty independent and do things on your own, or because there's something there around like I don't want like to feel like someone's taking away my independence and who I am.
mhm. Well, I don't feel like dating or being in a relationship somehow compromises my identity or takes anything away from me.
Hmm.
So it's not that. It's that for me, it's about the perception that what I need to be to attract men is not does not come naturally to me. And so to do it feels like it's a little bit like playing a game and not being authentic. But maybe I'm not looking at it right, or I don't really understand
Yeah,
what
like
it
I,
is.
yeah, yeah. No, and I think you're trying to figure it out. And I think there's just these associations that just keep tripping you up. And I'll get to that in a second because I do have some ideas for you, but I'm also trying to get a more at the root of things so that we can kind of move you forward. Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how did you grow up? Like, what was your role growing up?
Well, what was my role? I was one of the kids. I was the
Mm.
oldest of three.
Mm.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom until we got old enough, and then she went back to work. Um,
Oh, so were you the caretaker? Like you kind of had to take care of your siblings and
Not really.
mm.
Um, I was independent. I moved out of the house when I was 16 because I didn't get along with my dad. So I've been on my own since I was 16. But I don't. I mean, a lot of people will like really raise their eyebrows with that, but for me, it just was what I needed to do. So I didn't. It. I don't. I don't think anything of it really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, no, but I mean, you've been taking care of yourself for quite a long time.
Hmm.
And which is, like more so than, other people, like just, going off on your own at such a young age. So you didn't have a good relationship with dad. Like, did dad and mom not have a good relationship either?
Well, I mean, I think they had a very traditional relationship. He was the breadwinner and the decision maker, and she was the homemaker and took care of the kids in the house and the cooking and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what did you think of that? Like, what did you think about your parents' relationship?
I don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't really think about their relationship, to be honest. I mean,
Hmm.
they were the parents. Then my dad
Mm-hmm.
was a very authoritarian, and my mom didn't challenge him, and that was the way that it was in our house.
Well, see, and the reason why I'm asking, like, was there ever maybe like, and maybe it was in the subconscious, or maybe you never thought about it before, this kind of frustration with your mom not standing up for herself more and being able to see more like maybe love and affection between them? Like, have you ever thought about that?
Well, it's so I have a degree in psychology, and we learned that for the most part, when people grow up, they either identify with one or the other of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, if that were the case, I clearly would have identified more with my father than my mother because
Mm.
I'm, the stronger one and independent. In my prior marriages, I was the primary breadwinner. So,
Ah.
so I would say I identified with my father and probably chose partners like my mother. Now, hopefully, I've done enough work that I don't make that mistake again. But
Yes.
that's sort of the history.
Okay, so I think I think things are kind of coming together. So just stay with me for a second because I think
Hmm.
there's a relationship here with how you're, seeing dating and relating and flirting and all that with also just
Hmm.
some things that happened in your upbringing. So if you learn to be that independent woman that always took care of herself and you were the oldest of all your siblings, like you kind of had that role, right? Um,
Hmm.
then you attracted a guy who you had to take care of.
Hmm.
And how did that work out?
Well, not too well, obviously. I'd like a do-over.
And what about that dynamic do you want to do over? Like what do you want to track this time around?
No, I'd like to have a healthy, interdependent relationship, which I think is what most would say is what you want. Someone where you each are looking out for the other's interests as much, if not more, than your own.
Uh-huh. So how do you allow that? Like, do you are you able to be open to receive? I mean, you haven't really received, it sounds like, for a long
Yeah,
time.
no, receiving has always been a challenge for me, because I've always been more of the giver. But I'm much better at it now. I'd like to give it another try, but I
Yeah,
haven't had the opportunity yet.
right. Okay, so this is really good. And I'm going to just tie some things together that I'm not sure you've thought about before, but it relates to this whole sticking point for you. Okay.
Hmm.
So, what you're saying is that this time around, you want things to be different. And, I always say, like, if you want to change your story, you have to go back to the beginning of the script and change like the dialogue from the minute you say hello. Because usually how you lead and how you interact with people in that first encounter actually paints and paves the road for the rest of the relationship. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting because, like when I was in grad school, we had learned also that the things that end up attracting us also
Hmm.
repels us in the end. And
Mm.
it's interesting when you look back and you see maybe there were, red flags or things that you dismissed but what we all do is we default back to what we know, good, bad, or indifferent. And what all you've known is to be the giver, to be the
Hmm.
independent one. Right. And so, guess what? That's where you lead. That's what you lead with.
Hmm.
That's what you're good at. You're good at it like in business. You're good at it probably with friendships. Like you're a giver, and a leader and all that. But what happens is when you're leading in that energy, it gets hard to lean back and receive
Hmm.
because your confidence, first of all, doesn't live there. You've never done that before. You didn't even have that in your family system. Like you always just had to do things by yourself.
Hmm.
So it's new. I just want to like relieve you of this and say, Lisa, it's okay. Like, how are you supposed to know this? You never learned it before. It's a skill. And what if I told you that the true definition of femininity is actually receiving? It's a
Mm.
leaning back. It's allowing a man to do things for you. And it's not to say that you can't do it yourself, right? Like it's not
Hmm.
to say that you could do everything a man could do for you, but that's not the point. Wouldn't it be nice to have some reciprocity? Wouldn't it be nice to have actually a guy say, "Hey, I got this."
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, listen. There's the girl. Now I hear the girl. You just softened, even in your voice. Do you feel that in your body?
Yeah.
Your voice did a little tilt. You got a little lighter, and guess what? You just became something that you are, not that you were pretending to be someone you're not. You didn't even realize that. That's authentically
Mm-hmm.
you, Lisa. Like the authentic woman, and we all have this as women. We want to be cherished and loved, and we want to be able to receive, but we're in a world where it's becoming confusing, right? Because
Hmm.
now we don't need a man so much anymore. And like you said in the beginning when you were talking about with your friend, I think then guys just don't know their way or they don't know their place anymore.
Hmm.
And so when you don't have the energy of the queen, of leaning back, of receiving, of slowing down, being in your flow, that's the feminine power. It's not dumbing down. It's not being weak. It's not being helpless. It's allowing an opening for a man to say, I got this. Do you feel the difference?
I do.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Well, I think understanding the difference and putting it in practice are two different things.
Yeah, well, 100%, right? And that's where now the skills come in, and I'm going to give you some like actionable homework stuff that you can start practicing. But I
Terrific.
first wanted to have it kind of click for you is that the very thing that you're wanting, you're actually blocking by leading with this kind of I don't need no man energy and you like me for me or F you kind of thing. I'm not saying you're like totally like that, but there's something about that where you're feeling like, well, you better like me like this. I'm not changing you for you,
Hmm.
or I'm not going to dumb down for you. And no man likes that anyway, because then you're going to attract something totally different. So it's not being Jessica Rabbit, twirling the hair, like, because let's go over to the flirting piece and how that relates to it. It's the same thing with the flirting. Like you're doing a lot of worrying about what the intention is and the outcome is
Hmm.
versus then just being in your flow, being in your receiving mode, but being in your play. And it doesn't have to be this like highly sexualized behavior, but there's got to be some sort of indication and opening that you're interested. Because the last
Hmm.
time I checked, you're not trying to attract a friend or a business partner, correct?
Right.
You're trying to attract a sexual partner, yeah?
Hmm.
Well, so then there has to be an element of that openness to do that. Otherwise, you're just a LinkedIn exchange. You're just a
Hmm.
friend. What are you thinking?
I understand what you're saying, understanding it and understanding how to manifest it and I don't mean manifest like wish it. I mean to execute it are two
Just to
different
do
things. So
it.
I don't really understand.
Hmm.
I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know how what that looks like, I guess is the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've shared this story, I think before a long time ago on my podcast, but I'm going to share it again because it relates to what we're talking about. I really understand what you're saying because when I first got a divorce, I mean, oh my God, the thought of flirting and going out, in the second act when I'm like a single mom, I'm like, I'm not feeling very sexy. I don't know what to do. And what I did is I went out and I got my set of good like wing gals. We call ourselves Sex in the City gals. And what we would do is we go to a different venue every single week and we would practice this thing called flirting. And what I noticed is that we all had different flirting techniques. So
Mm,
also to like relieve you of this notion of like, well, here's the how to and here's the textbook thing and do A, B, and C. And then now you're like this robot who doesn't feel like you, right? I noticed that like one friend did the twirling of the hair and the googly eyes. Well, that wasn't me. God love her. She did it great.
mm,
And it worked. Why? Because she felt good in it. Like that was her
mhm,
thing. It was authentically her. One woman was really shy. She was kind of more of an introvert like you, but she had these wicked eyes. And
mm,
it was just the way she looked at men that had that twinkle. And oh my God, guys would just melt. I'm like, wow, well, that's pretty cool magic thing that you got there. And then my third friend, she used more humor. And I feel like you have that too. You kind of have this like off the cuff wit that's awesome. She had to be a little careful because if she used it too much, she would fall in the friend zone because it'd be too like buddy buddy like humor and deflect things. But
mhm,
she learned how to do it with a little bit more like femininity and flair. Me,
mhm.
I I I took it all in. I mixed it in a bowl and you know what I mean? Like I took the ingredients, I mixed in a bowl and I made it my own because none of it was really me, but I had to
Mhm,
feel into what felt like me. And I started with things
mhm,
that I was good at. And so I think that's where we start with you is really defining, for yourself what feels just like good, but that also could allow some openings and indications that you're interested in a guy. And I also want you to just think about the definition of flirting is to behave as though you are attracted to someone without the serious intention of an outcome.
mhm,
That's it. That's what's in the dictionary. So really all this other stuff that we have going on, and the reason why we stop ourselves is because we're worried about what's next, not what is. And so if you can just think about, first of all, flirting as just an energy and fun that just draw like a more of a playfulness, like being a kid on a playground that just draws people to you, not worrying about, oh, like I don't want to give that guy the wrong idea.
mhm.
You'll never move on with, I mean, just trust yourself. You're never going to move on with someone you don't want to. But oh my God, isn't it fun to play a little bit?
Sure.
Right. So, okay, so let's talk about this. What are some things that you're good at when it comes to being like fun and playful?
I'm good at joking and teasing and,
Uh-huh.
you know, banter. I'm good at banter.
Yes, I can tell that. Yeah, that's what I feel. I feel like you're my friend who was really good at that, like kind of witty teasing thing. See, I
Hmm.
think that's your wheelhouse. Like I think just having a little bit of like sarcasm and teasing, like boys love when girls tease them. That goes back into the kindergarten, you know? Seriously, that think
Yeah.
about that. Like this is what we all find attractive. It's like going back to the playground where like the boys used to chase the girls and the girls would tease the boys and we pull the
Yeah.
hair and all that. It all goes back to that. But now obviously we can't go around pulling hair, but we can still be fun and playful. So I love that for you. The thing that you have to be careful of is that you don't get too sarcastic because that can come across as a little brass.
Mm.
So I think mixing with just being real and having wonderful conversations, but also doing a little tease and lightness is a good mix for you. Now, let's talk about your body language.
Hmm.
When you are on a date or having a conversation with guys, do you lean in? Do you sit close? Do you touch them? Do you make eye contact? Like what's your
Well,
assessment?
I'm good at eye contact because that's what I learned in business. And what I
Uh-huh.
also learned is to lean forward, and then someone says, "Oh, no, 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 you don't do that. You have to sit back." So I try to remind myself if it's a dating situation, not to lean forward, to sit back and to yield, basically.
Well, I think I want you to think of it as a dance. Okay.
Hmm.
So like when you're dancing, it's never just like, especially with a partner, there's an ebb and flow. Like sometimes, like you go one way and then it carries you to another way. Well, this is the same thing with your body language. I love the eye contact thing. So I feel like if you this could be part of the mix of your flirting style. If you can hold a gaze and look into a
Hmm.
man's eyes as you tease him, oh, that would be awesome. Like I think guys would love that and eat it up.
Hmm.
Eyes are amazing. And you know what? There's so many people who are not comfortable with eye contact that's like a superpower for you. Okay. So
Well,
like that, think about that as being part of your ingredients. Now, in terms of the leaning forward and back, I actually see both being really good. And it depends where you're sitting. So like if you're going on a date with someone, I highly recommend mostly to sit like next to the guy. So like try to have opportunities where you're sitting at a bar together or like going to sushi together, like where you're close by. Because the obstruction of a table, it puts people at a distance and you can't get like
mm-hmm.
close to them. And
Hmm.
so having that kind of like closeness is also a way to indicate that you like him. And if
Hmm.
you can maybe look in his eyes and kind of lean into him as you're telling a cute little story and smiling at the same time, that's flirting. That's cute. And then after you tell the story, then you just kind of lean back and then you let him
Hmm.
talk and see what he's got for you.
Hmm.
That's the dance. It's not a game. Think of it as a dance and playing on the playground. And I think it's like a mental thing with you. Like if you can almost just say that in your mind that I'm not going into the battlefield, I'm going into the playground. It's a
Hmm.
different mindset. How does
Yes,
that
it is.
sound? Like, does that sound
Well,
doable?
yeah, I could do that.
Okay, good. Yeah, you see, you even said it so girly. I love that. You're like, I could do that. And I would say that's another thing. Do you know that tonality of your voice is also body language? It's a nonverbal signal. And
Mm,
you tend to have a very deep voice. I've
yes.
never met you in person, but just when I've listened to you. And a
Hmm.
deep voice can like exude power like in business for sure, and I think you can
Hmm.
match guys when you're talking to them. But when you go up a little bit, and when I was asking you about like, wouldn't that be nice if a guy took care of you? You go, yeah, that would be good. And when you went up, it became more
Hmm.
feminine.
Mm.
And so that would be the third thing to work on is to kind of lighten your voice and make it go up a little bit more and just think of it as like singing. Because you can do it. You did it here on the podcast.
Right. But yeah, I have to definitely not think of it as singing because I'm a terrible
Oh,
singer,
is
but
there?
I get, but that's okay. I get the idea.
Yeah, or whatever other association. Like, I just don't want you thinking of it as like pretending like you're being something that you're not, because that's like a
Hmm.
sticking point for you. Like, whatever
Right.
association you can have where it's like, oh, well, this is just going to be my dating voice. Like it's kind of like
Hmm.
your dating costume. And that was my other idea for you. So tell me about your wardrobe. Do you have a dating costume? What do you wear?
Oh, I've got lots of things. Yeah, I have everything. I have, well, cute little type skirts and stuff that shows a lot of skin and bright colors and all that kind of stuff.
Yay. And do you wear those on dates?
Well, I haven't been on a date in a while, but I could if I had a date.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. And then what about, have you ever worn, I mean, I'm not saying you have to like, although it might be a good experiment to put on, something that's really kind of sexy in your mind and makes you feel good and sexy and just like walk around a grocery store or a department store and just make eye contact and start chatting up men. Have you ever thought about doing that?
No, never crossed my mind.
Okay, so that's your next assignment. Okay. So, like, keeping your little flirt formula in mind, I also want you to do this as an exercise. Just make it almost like a game for yourself. And it could be once a week, could be twice a week. See how many times you can kind of force yourself to do this. And I'd say, I don't know, half hour, hour, get all dolled up, get into your flow, get into your sexy, keeping these things in mind and just go through the grocery store and just see the impact it has on men. Notice who's noticing you. Do your wicked eye contact, like all those things, and just start opening yourself up to this kind of new energy and world.
Hmm.
I mean, this is what happened with me when I had my red dress moment. A lot of people know this story. I literally took my red dress and I started walking everywhere in it. And it was super like eye-opening. I mean, the first thing that happened is that I actually decided I didn't like it. I was like, "Oh my God, this whole time I've been wearing clothes to like keep me invisible from men." But then I started just forcing myself to be comfortable being seen. Cuz see that association that you have around the sex thing, I need for you to get rid of that. That by being sexy and being flirty, being fun, is not dumbing down. It's not like giving the guy the wrong impression. It's actually just owning your femininity. And then you can go on and have play dates with whoever you want. You tease, right? Like it's not a tease. It's just you're just marketing yourself that way. And then guess what? What if there is a guy who checks you out that you like? Awesome. You did your job by having good advertising. Right? Like just think of that.
Hmm.
What we're talking about is marketing. I'll put it in business terms. It's really just
Hmm.
marketing yourself so that a guy gets to know who you are. You're not changing who you are.
Hmm.
You're awesome. You are seriously
I
like
am.
yeah. Do you feel that? Do you know that?
Yeah, 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 I am. If somebody get to, take the time to get to know me, they would see that too.
And that's the problem. There's a gap. There's a gap
Hmm.
there. And because you're more introverted, it's taking too long to warm up to that so that a guy sees all that. And what I'm
Hmm.
saying is let's close the gap and start advertising that part of you so that guys then say, "Oh, yeah, like they'll see more and more and more of you."
Hmm.
Lisa, I'm going to tell you this with like all love. Like there's no way that anyone's going to dumb you down. You're too smart for that.
Oh, bless your heart.
Seriously, there's no way you can even pretend to be dumb.
Hmm.
So that's never going to happen. You never have to worry about that. Guys actually love intelligent women. That's the thing that's the kicker of this whole thing because I work with men too. And men's like, "Why do you ladies think that we want a dumb girl?" No, they don't want a dumb girl. That's not it. But they just want to
Hmm.
feel like that they can help. They want to feel like they can serve. And gosh, we want that.
Absolutely.
So allow it.
Yeah. Well, you've given me some good ideas. Thank you, Kimmy.
You're welcome. All right. So what are you committed to doing? Like what do you I know we talked about some different ideas, but what are you committed to doing and how are you feeling?
Oh, I feel fine. I need to integrate what you've shared with me and, think about how I approach men in terms of, my body language and how I talk to them and what I say to them and how I say it to them and see what opportunities I can have or create to practice those skills.
Exactly, exactly. And the next level would be also to kind of, you know, learn how to talk more in your feelings and your emotions so that guys feel you too. Like that would be kind of the next step. Because even when I said, "How are you feeling?" You're like, "Well, I'm fine," but that's not a feeling.
Hmm.
But what if you said, "Well, I'm actually a little nervous. I'm kind of excited, and maybe I'm hopeful."
Hmm.
And that's more of a window into the real Lisa, like how she's feeling, so that guys can feel that.
Hmm.
And that's like, the next kind of step. But I don't want to even go there with you. I just want you getting comfortable with some of this stuff because it's easy
Hmm.
to practice and just, I'd say for the next like 2 months, just do this like once a week and practice that
Hmm.
and get used to it and then get comfortable with it. And then you move on to the next thing. It's just like anything in life. You have to exercise that muscle and get strong. You just never learned it before.
Right.
And if a guy wants to buy you a drink, let him. If he wants to open the
Oh, of
door.
course. Yeah. Well, I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that.
Yeah, and talk
And I
more like
thank
that.
them afterward.
And talk more like that, like how you just did. That was really awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Lisa, I'm so glad you came on here. I hope this was helpful.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And you give me a lot of good food for thought and ideas for what I can do to help build my skills for interacting more constructively with men to
Awesome. All
get
right.
what I want. Yeah,
Yes, yes. Well, I want a full report after, so we'll be
I
watching.
promise. All right, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
All right.
So, thanks for joining me today. This has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, make sure you go to my site, as always, kimmyseltzer.com. And if you are a novice dater feeling overwhelmed to put yourself out there and are not feeling the spark of joy or flirtiness in your life, I have two upcoming opportunities for you. First, join me in my next workshop. It's May 22nd. And guess what? It's on flirting. It's co ed, of course. And this is where you're going to learn to unleash your natural charm and charisma. This is not your average dull talking head Zoom meeting. This is interactive and fun. So I've cut off all the fluff to focus mostly on the most effective flirting strategies and techniques. And you'll leave the workshop inspired, confident, and ready to navigate the dating world with positive, fun attitude after you do a little bit of practicing with the opposite sex. So just click the link to register or go to stophatingdating.com. But hurry, these spots do go quick. Also, if you haven't heard, I have a special retreat coming up in June. It's just for women and it's called Spark Your Sexy. And it's going to be amazing. I only have 4 spots left, but I wanted to hop on and let you know about it in case you were interested. This is to ignite what I call the 5 F's: fun, friendship, fashion, flirting, and femininity. So if you are interested, definitely contact me. You can do that by going to askkimmy.com. That's askkimmy.com. And we can see if it's a fit. All right. Well, hopefully we can chat about that sooner than later. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.